A massive German shepherd lay in the snow at -35 degrees, chained to frozen steel, his body built for service and loyalty now left to break in silence. He had once followed commands without question, but when he was no longer useful, the world turned its back. It seemed no help would ever come. Then, through the storm, approached not a savior in armor, but a wounded former Navy SEAL limping exhausted, carrying battles no one could see. No one believed these two would survive the night, but when danger arrived, their broken hearts found the same rhythm, and together they did what doctors call impossible and believers call a miracle. What this dog did for the man who refused to abandon him will make you cry and believe again in the power of kindness. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from, and if you believe in second chances, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach hearts that need hope today. Winter pressed down on Duluth, Minnesota, like an old god, testing the worth of what remained alive. Wind howling off Lake Superior snow, scouring steel, and the cold biting deep enough to make memory ache. Jack Miller returned to the city the way wounded animals return to familiar ground quietly, without ceremony, hoping not to be noticed. At 38, he carried the build of a man once shaped by discipline. 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, compact muscle hardened rather than swollen, the kind earned through repetition and restraint. His face was sharply angled, cheekbones cut clean beneath weathered skin, browned by years of sun and sand overseas. A short, uneven beard shadowed his jaw, more neglect than style, and a thin scar traced from the corner of his right eyebrow into his hairline pale against darker skin. His eyes, steel gray and habitually scanning, belonged to someone who had learned early that safety was temporary. Jack had been a Navy SEAL for 14 years. He had left the teams not in glory, but after an explosion that shattered cartilage in his knee and fractured something quieter behind his ribs. Since then, pain had become a background noise, and silence had become dangerous. He drove an old pickup along the frozen industrial shoreline, heater rattling uselessly, radio off. Sound invited memory. Memory invited the past. The storm thickened headlights tunneling through white when something dark and low caught his peripheral vision near an abandoned loading yard. Jack slowed. Training did not leave a man just because the uniform did. The shape was wrong for debris. Too deliberate. Too still. He pulled over, boots crunching on ice as the wind slapped his face raw. The figure resolved into a dog, no. A German shepherd, large male, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, its frame powerful even in collapse. The coat was classic sable black saddle, dusted with frost tan flanks, dulled by grime. A steel cable ran from a bent collar to a rusted post driven into the frozen ground. The dog's ears were half pricked, one nicked at the tip, and his muzzle bore a faded white scar like a fingerprint of past violence. One amber eye tracked Jack. The other was ringed red, with burst vessels blinking slow and wary. The animal did not bark. He did not snarl. He simply watched, breath fogging in shallow, controlled bursts. That restraint hit Jack harder than aggression would have. This was a working dog, trained, disciplined, abandoned. Jack crouched, keeping his posture loose, palms visible, voice low and steady the way it had been with village elders and frightened children half a world away. "Easy, buddy," he said, surprised by the rust in his throat. The dog's body trembled, not from fear alone, Jack realized, but from exhaustion layered over cold. The cable clinked softly when the shepherd shifted his weight, and at the sound the dog flinched, muscles bunching, teeth flashing for half a heartbeat before control slammed back into place. Jack froze. He knew that flinch. He had lived inside it. "All right," Jack murmured, swallowing. "No metal." He stepped back, careful, respectful. Wind tore at his jacket, and for a moment the city seemed to hold its breath. Jack thought of orders shouted over rotor wash, of the weight of a teammate's arm gone slack of waking at night with his hands already clenched. He thought of how usefulness had once defined him and how quickly it had been revoked. The shepherd lowered himself slowly onto his haunches, never breaking eye contact. There was intelligence there, yes, but also something dulled by betrayal. Jack felt a familiar pull, that dangerous instinct to fix what was broken. He unclipped his jacket, draping it on the snow a few feet away to cut the wind, then reached into his truck for a bottle of water and a protein bar. He set them down, backing off again. The dog sniffed, hesitated, then nudged the bar aside, choosing water first. Jack exhaled. "Figures," he said softly. "Priorities." Snow began to fall harder, thickening the night. Jack looked at the cable, the frostbitten ears, the way the dog kept glancing toward the empty yard as if expecting someone who would never return. Jack did not know yet that this shepherd would save his life, or that saving the dog would force him to choose life again himself. For now there was only a man, a storm, and a working animal who had been left to die, and the quiet, stubborn decision not to walk away. Morning did not arrive in Duluth so much as it loosened its grip, the storm retreating into a pale, brittle silence that made every sound feel too loud. Jack Miller woke on the narrow bench seat of his pickup with his knee screaming and his heart already braced for threat. For a few seconds he did not remember where he was, only that he had slept badly and dreamed worse. Then he saw the cable again in his mind, heard the soft clink of metal, and he was fully awake. He stepped out into air that burned clean and sharp breath turning instantly to steam, and his eyes went straight to the loading yard. The German shepherd was still there, curled but alert, head lifting the moment Jack moved. Snow crusted the dog's back like a second skin. He had not tried to chew the cable. He had not wasted energy. He had waited. That patience told Jack more than any snarl ever could. Jack approached slowly, boots crunching, keeping his hands low. The dog rose with effort, favoring his right hind leg posture, straightening into something that looked uncomfortably like attention. The resemblance struck Jack hard enough to make him pause. He had stood like that once, spine-locked eyes forward, waiting for commands that might end him. "You don't have to do that," Jack said quietly. The dog's ears flicked one notching lower, but he remained standing, gaze steady, measuring. Jack cut the engine noise from his mind and focused on details: the worn pads, the cracked nail on the left forepaw, the faint chemical tang beneath the grime that suggested training compounds. This dog had worked. Someone had invested time, precision money, and then left him to die. Jack returned to the truck and came back with a blanket and a length of rope. He laid the blanket down first, then set the rope well away from the cable, letting the dog watch the whole process. The shepherd sniffed, then stepped onto the fabric with care, settling his weight as if testing ground for mines. Jack crouched and felt his knee protest the familiar warning that his body would not be ignored. He thought of the explosion heat pressure, the sudden wrongness of bone, and of the months after when people spoke to him more slowly, as if loudness could fix what time had broken. He shook the thought away. This was not about him. He pulled a small first aid kit from behind the seat. When he held up a strip of gauze, the dog's body tightened. The cable chimed faintly. The shepherd flinched, breath-hitching teeth flashing again before restraint snapped back into place. Jack stopped, immediately lowered the kit, and sat back on his heels. "All right," he murmured. "We go slow." He waited. The dog's breathing eased, muscles uncoiling by degrees. Jack tried again this time, tearing the gauze silently with his fingers instead of scissors. The dog watched, wary but curious. Jack wrapped the worst scrape on the foreleg without touching, metal fingers steady from years of work under pressure. The shepherd accepted it, eyes never leaving Jack's face, reading intent with the fluency of long training. When it was done, the dog leaned back, then unexpectedly nudged Jack's knee with his nose light as a question. Jack's throat tightened. He did not touch the dog's head. He rested his palm on the snow between them instead, letting the shepherd decide distance. The dog lay down again, closer this time, breath brushing Jack's wrist. A voice cut through the quiet. "You planning on freezing out here all day? Or did the dog recruit you?" The speaker was Sarah Collins, the only veterinarian within miles who still made winter calls. She stood near the fence line, tall and spare, early 40s, wrapped in a dark parka that made her look thinner than she was. Her hair, iron gray threaded through brown, was pulled into a low braid that swung when she walked, and her face bore the calm lines of someone who had learned to hold steady while others panicked. Years earlier she had lost her brother in a lake accident, and since then she carried grief the way some people carried tools, quietly with purpose. Her eyes, sharp hazel, took in Jack, the cable the dog assembling facts with practiced speed. Jack stood joint stiff and nodded. "He won't come near the scissors," he said. Sarah crouched, keeping her profile narrow, voice low and even. "I see that. He's trained. Probably private security or search work." She glanced at the cable, jaw tightening. "That explains the fear." The shepherd watched her, ears tracking, body tense but not aggressive. Sarah smiled faintly, not at the dog, but at Jack. "You're doing fine," she said. "Let me help." Together they worked without speaking much, Sarah using cloth and pressure, Jack timing movements to the dog's breathing. They did not free the cable yet. They stabilized, warmed, waited. When they finished, Sarah straightened and met Jack's eyes. "He'll need shelter," she said. Jack looked at the dog, then at the long stretch of frozen water beyond the yard. He felt the familiar pull again, the one that ruined plans and saved lives. "I've got a place," he said. The shepherd lifted his head at the sound, amber eye brightening. He did not move, but something in him shifted like a door opening a crack. Jack Miller did not take the shortest road home. He took the quiet one, the service route that threaded along the frozen edge of Lake Superior, where the wind scoured sound down to essentials. The German shepherd, still unnamed aloud, rode in the truck bed within sight through the rear window, wrapped in the blanket cable secured to a wooden crate Jack had bolted down to prevent metal clatter. The dog lay steady, eyes open, tracking the horizon as if counting distance rather than time. Jack drove with both hands loose on the wheel, posture careful the way men do when pain is predictable and therefore manageable. His place was a converted boathouse set back from the shore, gray boards weathered to the color of old bone, a single light above the door that buzzed like a tired insect. Inside, the heat worked slowly, honestly. Jack moved furniture to clear space, laying down rubber mats to soften sound and footing. When he returned to the truck, the dog watched him with that same composed attention, neither pleading nor defiant. Sarah Collins stood by the fence, arms folded, parka unzipped to reveal a wool sweater the color of pine needles. Up close, Jack noticed faint freckles across her nose and a thin scar at her chin, old, clean, the mark of someone who healed forward. "I'll stay a bit," she said, "just to be sure." Jack nodded. Together they guided the dog inside without touching the cable, voices, low movements, deliberate. The boathouse smelled of wood oil and lake-cold metal. The dog hesitated at the threshold, then stepped in, head high, assessing angles and exits like a professional. Jack set down a bowl of water. The dog drank, paused, drank again, controlled. Sarah checked the bandage, satisfied. "He's holding," she said, but that fear response sound-triggered. "We don't push tonight." Jack agreed. He sat on an overturned crate far enough to give space, close enough to be present. The dog lay down, chest to the mat head resting on paws, amber eye never leaving Jack's hands. The night deepened. Ice shifted out on the lake, a low groan rolling through the boards. At the sound, the dog stiffened, muscles loading. Jack felt his own breath tighten in reflex. The lake's voice carried memories of hulls slamming and radios screaming. He forced his shoulders down and reached into his pocket for the object he carried when sleep refused him, a small wind-up kitchen timer, plastic cheap, its ticking uneven but gentle. He set it on the floor, turned the dial slowly, tick, tick. The dog's ears flicked. Jack did not look at him. He let the sound exist without demand. The shepherd's breathing slowed by fractions. Sarah watched, eyes soft but alert. "You learned that somewhere," she said quietly. Jack shrugged. "Learned what doesn't kill you," he answered. The door creaked. A neighbor appeared in the frame framed by snowlight. Tom Alvarez, late 50s, dockworker's build, gone lean with years' salt and pepper beard, trimmed short eyes, kind but cautious. He had lost his son to an opioid winter 3 years back. Since then he measured people by whether they stayed. "Heard a truck," Tom said. His gaze slid to the dog taking in size scars the cable. "That yours?" Jack shook his head. "Not yet." Tom nodded. No judgment. "You need boards or feed, I've got spare." He left without waiting for thanks. The lake groaned again louder. The shepherd rose, pacing, a tight arc nails clicking once before Jack slid a rubber mat underfoot. The timer ticked on, stubborn as a heartbeat. The dog stopped, head cocked, listening not to the lake now, but to the small, steady sound. Jack risked a glance. The shepherd met it held, then did something that made Jack's chest ache. He sat. Not collapsed. Sat. The cable slackened as he settled, choosing stillness. Sarah exhaled. "Good," she whispered. Jack reached for the cable's lock, then stopped. He remembered her words. Not tonight. He left it as it was, and instead rolled the crate closer, making the distance shorter without changing terms. When sleep finally came, it came in pieces. Jack dreamed of ice breaking and hands reaching. He woke to the timer silent and the dog standing guard between him and the door posture, calm eyes bright. Dawn crept in thin and blue. Jack knew then he would call the dog Rex when the time was right, but he did not say it yet. Names were promises. For now there was warmth, a shared night survived, and the sound of ice that no longer owned the room. The morning after the ice spoke back arrived thin and uncertain, a pale wash of light sliding through the boathouse windows and settling on frost-rimed boards. Jack Miller woke stiff but clear-headed, the kind of clarity that followed a night when nothing catastrophic happened, and that alone felt like a victory. The German shepherd stood near the door cable, still attached, but slack posture, calm ears forward. He had not paced. He had not tested boundaries. He had simply watched the world wake up a sentry without orders who had chosen the job anyway. Jack moved slowly, testing his knee, then met the dog's gaze. "Morning," he said. The word sounded less hollow than usual. Sarah Collins returned before noon, boots crunching over ice, braid dusted with snow. In daylight she looked more severe than the night before, angular cheekbones, skin weathered by years of cold calls, eyes that missed little and forgave less, but when she crouched near the dog, her hands were gentle and precise. She listened to his heart, checked circulation, watched the way his eyes tracked movement. "He's stabilizing," she said, "but that cable has to go. Today." Not suddenly. Jack nodded. He had known this moment was coming. The shepherd sensed it too. His muscles tightened, breath-shortening amber eye flicking to the metal as if it were a coiled memory. Jack did not reach for tools. He reached for sound. He set the timer again, farther away this time, and wound it until the tick filled the room. He spoke while it ticked, voice even narrating every step the way he once did on dark stairwells. "I'm here. I'm moving. I'm stopping." The dog's ears twitched, then settled. Sarah brought out bolt cutters wrapped in cloth to mute the bite of metal. She paused, letting the shepherd smell her sleeves, her gloves leather-worn soft, no sharp edges. Jack placed himself between the dog and the door, not blocking, just present. When the cutters closed, the sound was dull, swallowed by cloth and tick. The cable parted. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the shepherd took one step back, then another, free weight, redistributing disbelief written in the set of his shoulders. He did not bolt. He did not attack. He sat. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Good," Sarah murmured. "Very good." She left soon after, promising to return, trusting what she saw. The afternoon brought a knock Jack hadn't expected. Deputy Mark Ellison stood on the threshold, broad and square, early 40s, close-cropped hair gone sandy at the temples, jaw shadowed with regulation stubble. His uniform was neat but worn like it had seen more nights than days. He had grown up in Duluth, lost a partner years back in a winter pileup, and since then carried a careful kindness behind his authority. His eyes went to the dog, then to the cut cable. "We got a call about a dangerous animal," he said, tone neutral. "And an abandoned yard," Jack explained without drama. Mark listened, nodding, noting the bandage, the calm, the way the shepherd's gaze flicked to Jack for cues. "He trained?" Mark asked. "Yes," Jack said. "And no one's claimed him." Mark crouched, letting the dog read him. "You keep him contained," he said. "I'll mark it as temporary shelter pending evaluation." He hesitated, then added, "You did right." When the door closed, Jack felt the weight of that simple sentence. Evening fell with a new kind of quiet. Jack took the dog outside on a length of rope, no metal letting him feel snow without pain. The shepherd moved carefully, testing freedom like ice, then trotted a small circle, tail low but loose. Jack laughed once, short and surprised. He knelt and for the first time touched the dog's neck where the collar had rubbed raw fingers, slow, respectful. The dog leaned into it, not fully, but enough. "Rex," Jack said, then softly, tasting the promise. The name seemed to fit the dog's square head, the old authority in his stance. Rex lifted his head at the sound, ears pricking, as if a door had finally been named. Night came again, but it did not bring the same fear. Rex lay near Jack's bed, unchained, eyes half-lidded, rising only when the ice groaned, and even then he looked to Jack, waiting for the tick that told him the world still worked. Spring did not arrive in Duluth with celebration. It came carefully, as if asking permission, loosening the ice along Lake Superior one cautious breath at a time. Jack Miller noticed the change first in sound. The groan of ice softened into a patient creak, the wind less sharp, more curious. Rex noticed it in scent. The German shepherd moved through the boathouse with a new confidence coat, shedding its winter dullness to reveal rich sable beneath muscles easing into strength rather than tension. He was still lean ribs faintly visible, but his eyes had warmed amber, bright with alert interest instead of guarded calculation. Mornings became a routine Jack did not dread. He rose early, knee stiff but workable, and brewed coffee while Rex waited by the door, tail low and steady posture, attentive without fear. They walked the shoreline on a rope that grew looser each day, Rex learning the rhythm of Jack's stride, Jack learning the subtle language of Rex's ears and breath. The lake tested them with sudden cracks and distant booms, but Rex no longer froze. He paused, looked to Jack, and waited for the quiet reassurance that followed. Sarah Collins visited weekly, her braid shorter, now ends frayed from long days. She brought supplies and measured progress with the satisfaction of someone who knew patience could save lives. "He's healing," she said one afternoon, hands warm and sure as she checked Rex's leg, physically and otherwise. Jack believed her. He felt it in the way Rex slept deeper, in the way his own dreams loosened their grip. Word traveled in a small town. People began to stop by quietly at first. Tom Alvarez brought scrap wood to fix a warped door. Deputy Mark Ellison returned paperwork with a nod that said more than words. And then there was Emily Harper, a social worker from the county shelter, late 20s, slight and athletic, auburn hair pulled into a practical ponytail, freckles scattered across fair skin like sunlight through leaves. She spoke gently, but without condescension, eyes attentive, posture open. Emily had grown up moving between foster homes, and it had taught her to read rooms quickly and leave space where trust might grow. She evaluated Rex formally, watched him respond to commands Jack had never taught, observed the way he checked in before moving. "He's bonded," she said, smiling, "with you." The paperwork took time, but it moved. On the day Rex's adoption was approved, the sky cleared fully for the first time in months. Jack signed his name with a steadiness that surprised him. When Emily handed him the papers, Rex pressed his head into Jack's leg, solid and warm, as if sealing the deal himself. Jack laughed a real sound this time, and the lake answered with a soft lap against the shore. They marked the day simply. Sarah brought a battered cake tin and lit a single candle, joking that it was more ceremony than most people ever got. Rex sat politely until invited, then accepted a small piece with grave seriousness. Jack watched heart full in a way that did not ache. Later, as evening settled, Jack took Rex out one last time. The rope stayed on the hook. Rex moved free, trotting ahead, then circling back, choosing to stay close. Jack felt the quiet settle, the good kind, the kind that did not threaten. He knelt and rested his forehead briefly against Rex's shoulder, breathing in dog and lake and thawing earth. He thought of who he had been, who he was becoming. Not fixed, not finished, but present. Night fell with stars reflected on dark water. Rex lay beside Jack, head on his boot, eyes half closed. Somewhere across the lake, ice broke and drifted away, carried toward a future that did not need to be named. Jack reached down and scratched behind Rex's ear. "We're good," he said. Rex's tail thumped once, steady and sure, and the light stayed. Sometimes miracles do not arrive as thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes they arrive quietly on four paws in a freezing night through a hand that chooses not to walk away. Perhaps God does not always remove the storm. Perhaps He sends companionship so we are not alone inside it. A broken man and a broken dog did not fix each other overnight, but they stayed. And staying when the world teaches us to leave is its own kind of miracle. In our daily lives, we all carry unseen wounds. Some of us limp in the body. Some of us limp in the heart. And yet every day God places small choices in front of us to be kind, to be patient, to protect instead of ignore. These choices rarely make headlines, but they change lives. If this story touched you, maybe it is because you recognize yourself somewhere inside it. And if so, remember this: you are not forgotten. You are not invisible. And your quiet endurance matters more than you know. If you believe in second chances, please share this story so it can reach someone who needs hope today. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from and what gave you strength during a hard season. And if you would like more stories of faith, loyalty, and unexpected miracles, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. May God bless you and your family. May He guard your nights, steady your steps, and remind you especially on the coldest days that you are never truly alone.